to Super Comic. Oh, I'm sorry. I just noticed it just went live. So let's try this again. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Super Comic Fun Time. I'm Douglas, and today is my birthday. So I just came back from seeing Black Panther. If you watched my videos earlier this week, everything except for the House of Secrets unpacking, which was filmed way back in February, you know that I've been celebrating my birthday this week in a super comic fun way, mostly unpacking some of these big cellophane bricks of comic books I have, as well as a big box of comics and this Wolverine glass that I unpacked this morning. So anyways, it was so weird. I really have wanted to see Black Panther, but I haven't been feeling well. And when I went to go see Thor Ragnarok, I wasn't feeling that well. And when I went to see Justice League, I think I was feeling better than for Thor, but I don't enjoy a movie as much as when I'm not feeling good. So at any rate, today, we talked about it, me and my wife, and she's really not into superhero movies, but because it's my birthday, she was willing to go with me. And I was still not going to go, but then Groupon put this offer in my mailbox this morning I couldn't refuse, and it was essentially 2 tickets for $13, plus the usual fees you have to pay. So it turned out being like $18 to go see a movie. And we went to see it in the bistro, so we ate food there. And so it was a little more expensive than that, but it was fun. And it's always fun to go see a movie with somebody. And this movie was a lot of fun, but you know how there's like the good, the bad, and the ugly reviews? I'm going to try to start with the ugly. The worst, okay, first of all, this is all spoilers. If you want my advice, or if you want to know if this is a good movie, this is a good movie. I had a lot of fun watching it. It's probably like, okay, it does not dislodge Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is my favorite Marvel movie so far, but I would say it's right up there. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. Maybe it's number 2, maybe it's number 3. I would have to think about it a little more, but it's high up there. So if you're just wondering if you should go see this movie, you should go see this movie. So let's start with the ugly. And I'm going to throw in the confusing as I remember it throughout this review. And as always, when I talk, I have a little gas, so excuse me a second. Oh, I had tacos at the movie. They were very good. So the ugly, when Forrest Whitaker's character dies. Now, Forrest Whitaker, he plays kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi character, and I never really feel the connection between him and T'Challa in this movie. Like, he gives T'Challa some advice, but there's never any intimacy between them like you have with Ben Kenobi and Luke Skywalker way back in the first Star Wars movie, so that when Ben Kenobi dies and Luke screams, "No!" you feel it. You understand why. Ben Kenobi has been a friend. Ben Kenobi knew his father. In this sense, he becomes a father figure to him. And in this movie, Forrest Whitaker's character never quite does that. He explains some things. He's a wise man. He's a great shaman. But when T'Challa screams, "No!" When he dies, it's laughable, quite frankly. So that's the worst part of the movie. But luckily, it's just a very small part, and I think that is just the ugliest part of the movie. The bad. Now, I had thought about the bad before I started this video. The bad, now that I've started talking, that's kind of flown out of my mind. Excuse me, one second. Let's get a little sip of water here. I will say that the movie did slow down at some point. I found the beginning of the movie a lot more fun. Probably the best time I had in the movie was in the first act. And then you come back to Wakanda, and it kind of slows down. I did like Claw. I would say, like, geez, I had specific things for the bad, but I can't remember them. So let's just move right into the good, and we'll just say the bad if I remember them. So, like I say, this movie was a great deal of fun. Um, the beginning of the movie, it's very much like James Bond. Not the very beginning. The very beginning, they're just trying to wow you with the scenery, and they do a great job of creating Wakanda. If you ever watch Deep Space Nine, now for whatever reason, the technology has not really gotten better. Like when they go to Bajor on Deep Space Nine, it's just this beautiful fantasy setting, and I don't even think Rivendell in Lord of the Rings looks better than Bajor in Deep Space Nine. And this is slightly better than Bajor when you see the city from the air, and you see the city from the air several times, and it's really beautiful. So that's the very beginning of the movie. And then T'Challa becomes king. The movie actually starts with him, like his love interest is out on a secret mission. And I think it's like one of these things, like remember when it was hashtag bring back our girls, when was it the Taliban who had kidnapped a whole bunch of girls? I think that's what they were going for. They never explicitly say it, but anyways, T'Challa's love interest is on this, and so he's dressed as Black Panther, and he like goes and gets her, and she goes, "I'm on a mission. Why are you stopping?" And that's like everybody kind of speaks with a European accent, a European English accent in this movie. So I'm going to just do that when I try to mimic the movie. So he goes, "Well, my father is dead. I'm to be crowned king tomorrow, and I want you there with me." And so she goes back, and that's when you like kind of fly in, and you fly, and it's Galt Skulch in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. That's all Wakanda is, except it's not. So that's. But like if you remember Ayn Rand, if you remember Atlas Shrugged, Galt Skulch is where all of the productive people, like they withdraw from the world because they, they're more or less being oppressed by the government, and so they decide, well, we'd rather live free, and so they make this kind of hologram in Colorado that hides their secret city, and everyone there has a purpose. Ayn Rand even wrote herself into it as an artist. It's a very good book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend Atlas Shrugged. It is very long, though. So, but, I would get both the hard copy and the audio version, and then, like, anything. The problem with Ayn Rand is her character dialogue can be very stilted, and her characters can be, they're there to, like, promote her philosophy. So, but you know that going in, so then you can just kind of like, that's the water. The water has waves. You're on a rowboat, and a wave hits you. You don't go, "Oh my God, this lake is defective. It's got waves." No, because you know what you're getting into. So if you understand Ayn Rand, I don't see anything wrong with reading her books for and exploring her philosophy. Some people do because they just want you to believe their philosophy. My philosophy is the majority is usually wrong, which I ripped off from Robert Heinlein. So you stick with that. Whatever the majority is doing, they're usually wrong. So you go the other way, and you'll be fine for the most part. But you have to use your own intelligence with it. Now, if you don't have intelligence, you just follow that rule and you stick to it, because you'll do better than if you have to rely on faulty intelligence. But if you're intelligent, then you know when to go with the crowd, and you never go all the way with the crowd. The crowd is stupid. Anyways, in this case, though, in the case of Black Panther, the crowd is right. Now, are they right for the right reasons? Probably not, but that doesn't matter. That should not deter you from enjoying this movie, which is a great superhero movie. Now, the beginning of the movie, like I said, I went through that, but then it turns into James Bond. T'Challa's sister is Q. Other people have said this. This is not an original thought on my part, but it's also, there's no way to get away from the comparison. So she gives T'Challa all her gadgets, and there's even a scene, like, usually in a Q scene in a James Bond movie, he's about to like use a pen the wrong way that's going to like blow his face off if he uses it wrong or something like that. Um, in this case, she has a Black Panther suit, and she's modified it so that it stores the energy. Like if you punch the suit, it stores that energy, and if you punch it again in the same place, it equals that punch back. And so T'Challa kicks the suit really hard, and she rebukes him, and she goes, "Oh, you come into my lab and you just maybe it's Jamaican accents. I'm not sure. They're doing some accents in here. They're not speaking Wakandese. They do sometimes, but for the most part, they're doing an accent that is probably is an African, and they always speak in English. At any rate, so he kicks the suit like, and it goes across the room, and she comes and brings it back, and then she starts her version of the Wakandan iPhone. She goes, and T'Challa goes, "You're recording this?" And she goes, "Just for scientific purposes. Now just hit it again in the same place you just hit it." And it's glowing blue because that's where the kinetic energy he put into it with his first kick is. And so he hits it this time, and it just pushes him across the room. And that was pretty cool, and that's sort of standard James Bond. And then they go to Korea, and it's standard James Bond. And they go into this casino, and it's standard James Bond. And there's a CIA agent played by Ian Martin, the Hobbit. And he was in Civil War as the same guy, the same CIA agent. And so this part of the movie is very James Bondish, and then you have the car chase, and that's very good. I didn't find this, a lot of times I find car chases boring. I didn't really find this one boring. It was a lot of fun, and it also had some of the Wakandan technology, like Q is driving the car that Black Panther is jumping on, but she's driving it from Wakanda by remote control. And we've seen this in James Bond too, only like, I remember Pierce Brosnan in Tomorrow Never Dies, and he's got this little thing, and I'm like, how is he able to drive this car while he's in the back seat? Because that would just confuse me. My mind doesn't work that way. And I just, in that case, I enjoyed that movie, and I just go, okay, he's James Bond, so he can do it. But in this case, she's got a whole quasi car that forms around her, and she's like, driving. It's like a drone operator. So essentially, she's the car is a drone, and the Black Panther is jumping on it. And there's this really cool scene where she can't get around, and he like uses his weight to like tip the car over and drive around stuff. So this part was the most fun. I go, I'm really, my inner mind is, I am really having fun in this movie. And then they catch Claw, and they take Claw to. I think CIA takes custody of him, and they interrogate him. And, he's played by Andy Serkis. So already you have two token themes going here. You have Ian Martin, who played the Hobbit, and you have Andy Serkis, who played Golem. And so they're kind of facing off with each other. Like, and T'Challa has put a listening device on Ian Martin's shoulder. And so, Andy Serkis, Claw, is telling Ian Martin all about how Wakanda is this advanced civilization. And he's like flabbergasted, because it's like, where did you get this prosthetic arm that can like do all this damage with sonics? And so anyways, he's like captured, or he's rescued by the son of T'Challa's uncle, and blah blah blah. And yeah, and then that was like the best part of the movie for me. That was really good. Then it kind of slows down a little bit, and what's his name, Killjoy, Killrover, Killmonger. He kills Claw after he rescues him, and he uses him as his passport into Wakanda, because he is Wakandan too by birth. His uncle was orchestrating the riots in 1992. I guess I don't exactly know what was going on at the beginning of the movie. That was a little bit confusing. So here's some of the confusion part is like T'Chaka shows up in 1992 Oakland, where his brother is, I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly. But later in the film, they say that he had been radicalized, and then he attacks T'Chaka. T'Chaka kills him, and this becomes a big family secret. And this is why the Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker relationship doesn't work, because that's the whole point of Forrest Whitaker being in this movie. He's the one who's there to tell T'Challa that his father killed his uncle. So anyways, the movie goes on from there, and then Killmonger challenges. This is like the thing. I'm like thinking, they have all this great technology, but their political system sucks, because Killmonger can just come in and say, I challenge you for the throne. And it's like, so you can challenge somebody for the throne at any time. It's not just when you're being coronated. You need a better political system. Just having vibranium doesn't make your utopia a good utopia. At any rate, and then like he's kind of like he burns the whatever room, and it's all because that's what he was trained by the CIA. Like when you go into a country, you go in during an election, and blah 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 blah. That part was a little bit boring. And then he becomes king for a little while. He's a very terrible king, and he just wants to send Wakandan technology out to all these gangs all over the world, because anybody in his mind, anybody who is black is a brother, which is sort of like in it just isn't that way. It's like we call people from the Far East Asian, but they're different groups of people. I read this book about a true crime book of a case that happened in Japan, and it brought up this thing about how there's this group of Koreans living in Japan, and they do everything they can to fit in. And, there's just racism between Japanese and Korean people. So, or, what we call racism. I'm not even sure what that word means anymore, because it just seems to be a hammer. People who can't think anymore, they just have like these blocks. You have your rectangle, your triangle, your circle, and if it isn't one of those, it's racism. So this is and I just lost my thread. I went off into the weeds. I'm sorry. At any rate, this movie also reminded me of a whole bunch of movies at the same time. It reminded me a lot of The Man Who Would Be King, which is a great movie. You should see it. Michael Caine and Sean Connery, based on a Kipling story of the same name. And they go to this faraway land. The English Empire isn't treating them well. And it's a lot like what's happening today is like, these immigrants are being allowed in, and they're getting all these benefits, where it's these soldiers, and Sean Connery and Michael Caine play these soldiers. They don't feel they were given, they feel they fought for the empire, and then they were forgotten in favor of these others. So they're going to go off. They're also Masons, and Sean Connery is wearing a little triangle with an eye through it. And they come to this village in India, and it turns out that they have this symbol there, and the person who's carrying this is going to be their king. And so Sean Connery pretends he's a god, he's a king, and he's not. And so he gets thrown over this bridge at some point in the movie. And this happens in this movie because T'Challa is the king, and he gets usurped by Killmonger, and Killmonger throws him over this waterfall. And you have a lot of death and resurrection. The first thing I noticed in this movie is like, you have you go to 1992 and you see this cube. Now, cube represents Saturn most of the time. It's got that storm at its pole. It's hexagonal, and that's a two-dimensional cube. And so, like, these kids are playing basketball, and then you go into the apartment where T'Challa's uncle, T'Chaka's brother, he's doing an arms deal or something. This part of the movie just confuses me the most. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing something. It doesn't matter because it moves the plot along, and it gives the impetus for T'Chaka the truth that he omitted. He's not going to say he lied. And that's another thing I like is like the whole Black Panther mythos is he communicates with his ancestors, especially his father. And this is a little bit like the Phantom. Like the Phantom did the same thing. And I really like that part of the movie. And so, there is that. There is sort of like Star Wars would have been better if, it's got all this mythology to it. And then you got another scene where there's a fire going on, and you've got the pink triangle, and I don't remember what was going on there. And then Killmonger is in a museum, and him and Claw rob it of some Wakandan vibranium. And yeah, the vibranium, that's how the movie really starts. Is an asteroid, and it hits Africa. And that is how Wakanda gets its great wealth and technology. But apparently, its technology doesn't help it to build a good political system. So, I have to say, I think Madison, he's the primary architect of our republic. And I think he did a very good job. It's just, it takes a lot from the people to keep it going, and we've been kind of dumbed down, unfortunately. Oh, excuse me. So anyways, T'Challa is the Christ figure in this, and you saw Man of Steel. There was like kind of a lot of that in there. Like in his very first fight, like there are 4 tribes who make up Wakanda, and then a 5th tribe who left when the magic herb created the first Black Panther because they didn't want to be ruled. And then like this, the leader of this 5th group comes in and fights T'Challa, stabs him, and of course the stab wound looks very vaginal, like a vagina. And I'm thinking Christ being stabbed in the side, because I've heard that guaranteed salvation for women in theology, because for whatever reason, they didn't see that men and women are pretty much one. Like our divisions are kind of like matter of perspective. I never really understood it. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying what is. And that's another piece of advice. Say what is. Don't, it's okay to speculate. I think this, but always acknowledge what is first. So it is just the way it was. Good, bad, it's the way it was. You can't really do much about it. It's sort of like in Rome. They said in Rome, men rule the government, women rule the men. So it's a saying. We really don't know what goes on when a man, a senator goes home and listens to what his wife has to say. But again, I'm off in the weeds. But that doesn't matter. So anyways, T'Challa gets usurped by Killmonger. Killmonger wants to send these weapons all over the place. Ian Martin comes to Wakanda because he's mortally wounded when he saves one of the bodyguards, not bodyguards, but like one of there's these bald women. Now, my favorite character in this movie happens to be one of these bald women whose name was it Okoye? not sure how to pronounce it, but when when Forrest Whitaker died, it just seemed ridiculous. When she died, I felt real emotion because she was a true patriot. She served the throne. She said when Killmonger came in and usurped the throne from and looked like he killed T'Challa, she was loyal to the throne. And there was this other woman, a spy, and she was loyal. She said she was loyal to her country too, but she just felt that Killmonger was a bad king, which he was. But so when Okoye died, I felt like real emotion. I felt really bad because I think I identified with her character the most. Excuse me. Mad Rolling Dolls. I don't know if you can see that. I haven't been to roller derby in 2 years now. Sadly, I really liked it, but it's so far away and I don't have a vehicle anymore. And to tell the truth, I'd rather be working on videos or ideas for videos or something like that. At any rate, so yeah, and they have these rhinoceroses in there, and they were fun. And we should all know by now that the rhinoceros is the unicorn. I'm not sure how the unicorn got turned into a horse with a horn down the center. I think it might have just been like people who never had seen a rhinoceros. And so the Bible mentions unicorns, and unicorns are rhinoceroses. The Bible isn't talking about horses with horns through their head. They're talking about the rhino with the, and there's two kinds of rhinos. There's the kind with the one horn, the unicorn, and then there's a kind that have two horns coming off of their head. So again, I'm off into the weeds. So the movie goes to the end. I found the third act to be pretty much fun. Like every Marvel movie, like I think the worst part for me was going from Avengers, where they have this big climactic fight on one of these big helicarriers, and then in Captain America, Winter Soldier, that the climax is pretty much the same. And I'm like, why are they doing this? And in this case, I found the weaponry. I mean, on the one hand, it's the same climax as every Marvel movie where you have a big fight scene going on. On the other hand, it was kind of fun. And then you also have a lot of Lord of the Rings references, like Ian Martin and three of the women, after T'Challa dies, they're going up to the mountain people, and they're like, they look like the four hobbits when they start out from the Shire. And then the Killmonger, he has his father's ring on a chain, like Frodo did in the Lord of the Rings. And yeah, but overall, it was a fun time. I really had a fun time with this movie. Highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it yet, you should go see it. So I think I'm going to end this broadcast here. Remember to hit the like button and hit the little bell for notification. And I will talk to you guys soon. I'll try to read some of these Mr. Miracle books, or maybe that Shazam book, something. I have to still read another chapter and a half of Watchmen for the book club tomorrow. If you aren't following, if you have a copy of Watchmen, you should check out not Super Comic Fun Time. You should check out Comic Book Girl 19's Twitch channel tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Time for the next Watchmen class. And this is Super Comic Fun Time signing off.